This channel is supported by Truefire. Truefire is an online library
enough, you can get the Truefire All Access Pass for as cheap as they ever do it, the $99 thing, so just jump and do that if you're looking for...
Okay, so a couple of weeks ago, this little guy came out. Now, you might have seen a few paid demos, you might have seen Anderton's. Now, I decided that I was excited about this prospect because it's a Boss pedal that hopefully I could say something positive about for a change over the Boss plug-out. And the first thought in my mind was, how does it compare to a Digitech Drop? So this is my buddy David Beebe's Digitech Drop, which he uses to get him out of tight spots like playing Mr. Brightside, and also when he has to work with singers who are changing the key at very last minute. So this is the Digitech, yes, the Digitechen Drop, which has been, I think you'd have to say, top of the pack for about as long as it's been on the market. There have been some other things that have come along, but I think still the Digitech Drop is the one to topple. So this is from 2014. We'll get into some specifics here. Now, I'm playing exactly the same take because it's all happened through a looper. So you're really just hearing like the actual difference between these two pedals in this introduction bit here. So yeah, let me know in the thoughts in the comments if you prefer either or, and then we're going to get into some of the things that matter around, first of all, tone and latency, and also, is the Digitech Drop, or was it, the best on the market until this came along? So hopefully in this video we'll have sensible answers to those questions. First of all, I wanted to establish whether the Digitech Drop was kind of still top of the heap-ish. So I compared it to the Fractal VP4, which has an updated pitch algorithm, and also to the HX-Effects. Now, HX-Effects, it happens that the Victoria team here, actually, there's some overlap in terms of personnel who worked on both of these bits and pieces. So if you do notice that these things have anything in common, that could be a good reason for that. Now, HX-Effects on Helix has a few ways of running this thing. So you can run it at X faster mode, which we're talking about the tracking here. So that is actually faster than the Digitech Drop. However, it sounds quite sort of artifacty. And this is, I guess, what we're looking for when something... There's two parts to it. It's latency, right? So how does it feel under the fingers? But also the trade-off is the faster it feels, probably the more you're getting in the way of artifacts, which the Digitech Drop seemed to be like a sweet spot. HX-Effects with the X faster is quicker than Drop, but sounds like this. If you set that to stable, it's actually, I think, 2.5 milliseconds than the Drop in my experimentation. So a smidge more latency with the HX-Effects is what I've found. But in terms of tone, I actually think maybe the Poly Capo even beats the Drop. I checked out the Fractal VP4 versus the Drop, and I noticed in here, so it's a little bit slower than the Drop for one thing, but also I didn't feel like it actually beats it in terms of more natural sounding pitch shifting. What I'm listening for and noticing here is there's like a little bit of a warble in there, and so it gives like a sort of subtle-ish Leslie type effect, which you may or may not hear. And I felt like it was more pronounced in the Fractal pitch algorithm than in the Digitech Drop. So for that reason, I felt like Poly Capo, yes, I think it can match the Digitech Drop. And not only that, if you were to run the Poly Capo versus running Digitech Drop in a loop, you'll probably find Poly Capo is actually probably faster than the Digitech Drop anyway, because there's only a difference of 2.5 milliseconds there anyway. Once you stick it in the loop, then, you know, I don't think anyone is going to be hearing like 0.5 milliseconds difference between one another. There will be slightly noticeable latency on both. Now, the really important part is the Poly Shifter XS1 quicker than the Digitech Drop? And the answer I found was yes. So in my experiments, I found that this was like 1.5 milliseconds, I think. Was it that much? 1.25 milliseconds faster than the Drop. Now, this may differ. So I spoke to a Line 6 dev about this a little bit. Like, so the lower frequencies you're using, so if you were to send a bass signal into these, you might find they respond slightly differently because it's working with a longer wavelength. You might find that those actually have a slightly more latency. But relative to one another, I found that this was about 1.25 milliseconds faster. So that's part one of the equation. Part two of the equation for me was that actually I felt like tonally, this feels a little bit, to me, from what I'm hearing, a little bit more hi-fi. First of all, it's sending signal out a little bit louder, which might be a bit of a cheat. So it's effectively tough to compare from that point of view, but I also think it's got like a little bit less warbling, just sounds a bit more natural like a guitar. Now, let me know in the comments if your opinion on that varies. But I think it preserves the high end a little better. Yeah, and to me, just sounds just a smidge more natural. It's not to say that the Digitech Drop is still not fantastic, especially considering it's 2014. But do I believe the Boss XS1 does a slightly better job of this particular thing? Actually, yes. The other really cool thing about the Polyshifter XS. So I think I've confirmed that it's lower latency. I think, to me personally, like tonally, I think I prefer the Polyshifter XS1. It sounds less like there's pitch shifting going on to me, more like an actual guitar. But it's also more versatile in terms of having octave, you know, going up 1, 2 or 3, as well as down. But also that detune mode, which is not present on the Drop. So the Drop can't go up. The Drop can't go up an octave, 2 octaves or 3 octaves. It can't go down as far either. And not only that, it doesn't have the chorus mode. So, and the other things with this, you can put it to momentary switching, whereas the Digitech Drop, you can also do that. But this can also be used with an expression pedal. So, for my money, the first thing that I kind of looked into with this was price, because the Polyshifter XS1 is a little bit more expensive than the Drop, like maybe 60, 70 quid. So I was thinking, well, it would have to be, for me to confirm that I'd spent my money wisely here, considerably, like either a smidge better than the Drop, which I think is what I confirmed, or faster and sounding better, as well as more versatile. So if you want something that can do like a bit of chorus on your pedal board, as well as this pitch shifting, then actually the Polyshifter XS1, I think, is, to me, now the king of pitch shifting. I've tried, like I say in this video, HX Effects, Fractal VP4. I've also tried the Eventide H90 pitch shifting. To me, Helix, Capo, and Digitech Drop up to this point have been the most transparent and best sounding polyphonic pitch shifting devices. And now there's a new king in town to me, the Polyshifter XS1. I'm absolutely glad that I bought this. And, you know, this to me is now the de facto leader of the polyphonic pitch shifting thing. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Have you tried one? Did you hear different things in there? As I say, in terms of my methodology for checking the latency, I set my time code in my DAW. They were both recording out at the same time. So there was like a looper that was split to both of them. And then I zoomed in and checked the difference on my time code from where the actual sample started. And I also did that in reverse with them in different outputs, just to double check that I wasn't getting extra latency on one of the outputs or the other. And then the difference between those two was the number of samples. And then from that, I can calculate that there is a millisecond difference. And it happens to be that this one is about 1.25 milliseconds in the samples, faster than the Digitech Drop. I don't know the overall latency of them. That is kind of variable anyway. But this one, I think, is going to be more transparent in your rig than the Digitech Drop. If you're looking for this kind of information, do check to see if anyone's got differing sort of experimentation with this, see if they come up with completely different answers. But I think I've been relatively thorough with this. So I think I'd be fairly confident in saying that. Boss in general tend to have pretty quick, compared to other manufacturers, digital to analog round trip conversions anyway, like the GT1000 Core and GT1000 has been, if you check out Leo Gibson's videos around latency, I think Boss do have quite a good track record of really low latency devices, so it kind of makes sense to me that the pitch shifter would win in that area as well. Cheers for stopping by. Hopefully that helps one of you, maybe two of you, make your choice, and I'll leave links in the description and Tom and for both. To me, XS1 is the winner.